He was 19-9 in college, could never beat the good teams he played. He was 0-2 to his rival. But here's a great example. One of the reasons I think Trey Lance is going to work is because I trust the general manager, the owner, and the coach and the roster. It's nothing against Zach Wilson. I think Trey Lance is a bigger, stronger athlete. I think Justin Fields is a bigger, stronger athlete. So I like them more than Zach Wilson. I think Trevor Lawrence, a bigger, stronger athlete. I do think, with very few exceptions, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, I like my quarterbacks to be 6'2", 6'3", see over the line. It's an easier life. Bigger arm is always better than an average arm, right? And so just to give you an example of why I've said, I think Zach Wilson, first of all, he absolutely has the fourth best coach in his division. That's not even arguable today. That's not good. He has the fourth best roster in his division. That's not good. But here's a great example of why I question Zach Wilson. So let's take arguably the four most dysfunctional franchises: Detroit, Jets, Cleveland, Chicago. They struggle with quarterbacks. Some companies just don't do certain things well. Last 25 years, the Bears, the Lions, the Jets, and Cleveland, last 25 years, have drafted 15 quarterbacks in the first round. None of them will make the Hall of Fame. Only 3 division titles. Only one got to a Super Bowl, Rex Grossman. In a year, he had 23 TDs and 20 picks. It was kind of a quarterback-limited team, not a quarterback-driven team. Almost all of these guys have bombed, underachieved, had losing records. I mean, Matt Stafford is one of the most... He was the number 1 high school quarterback in the country, the number 1 college quarterback in the country. He's never won a playoff game, no division titles. Matt Stafford. That's how... So you look at this. McNown, Grossman, Trubisky, Fields, Couch, Quinn, Manziel, Baker, Brandon Whedon, Joey Harrington, Matt Stafford, Pennington, Sanchez, Darnold, Zach Wilson. Do you really believe that it's always the kid's fault? That it's always the player's fault? It's just a coincidence that these 4 often dysfunctional franchises, it's just crazy. They can't get the quarterback right. Really? How come Green Bay always gets the quarterback right? Oh, maybe because they're a better run franchise? I mean, so with Zach Wilson is fighting an absolute uphill battle. And most of those quarterbacks that you saw on that list were much more acclaimed than Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson played in a small, they're independent, but they play small teams. He was 19-9. I don't believe he was even named team captain, which makes me wonder why. He couldn't beat rival Utah. They played Washington twice. Chris Peterson couldn't beat them. He couldn't beat good up. So a lot of these guys were like Heisman. I mean, look at Baker's career until he got the right coach. It was a mess. It was a disaster. And now Baker gets the right coach. So when I question your quarterback, it's not just the kid. Do I think Zach Wilson's a little small? Yeah. A little cocky. Yeah. Why didn't his teammates name him captain? Like, that's kind of a given for quarterbacks, right? Yeah. He plays a little bit like a poor man's Aaron Rodgers or a better man's Johnny Manziel. There's stuff I like, stuff I don't. But it's nothing personal. I look at everything. I look at all the surrounding. My issue with Justin Fields is not Justin Fields. It's the Bears front office, which I don't love. They were 8-8 last year. They were bad down the stretch, and they only had a couple of draft picks. Didn't do anything in free agency. Their offensive line's kind of in a rebuild. It's not a Justin Fields issue. It's, can he overcome that organization's history with quarterbacks? And by the way, the Jets and the Packers are practicing together. Zach is saying all the right things. He was talking about his admiration for Aaron Rodgers. He said, I'm a little bit of a fanboy. He's saying all the right stuff. Here he is.
James is a big fanboy. He was getting a little nervous over it. No, I'm a big fanboy too. We all got to kind of pretend like we've been there before, but we enjoy just being out here and being able to talk to him. We're all technically at the same level now. We're all in the NFL, but it's like we all still kind of like, you know what, that's Aaron Rodgers. It's kind of crazy.
Fans often think, Colin, you just want to be right. I don't care. My paychecks are not based on right. My relationship with Joy is not based on right. Our chemistry doesn't matter. Right doesn't make our chemistry better. Right doesn't change my paycheck. interesting does. I want Zach Wilson to be interesting. He's not going to be interesting at 2-15. I want him to succeed. I want all of them to. There's nothing more drecky than bad quarterback play. People say, oh, you love football. No, I love good football. I didn't watch the Texans last year. I didn't watch the Jags. There's always teams in the league. I try to watch the top 15, 20 teams in the league. I mean, you tell me by week 3, you going to be watching the Texans? I think Philadelphia is going to be a bad watch. If you don't live in Philadelphia, you think networks want to put the Eagles on? Networks won't. The networks won't put the Eagles on. They know you don't want to watch. So nobody roots against these guys, but you have to consider everything. When Andrew Luck has to retire early and he can't overcome it physically at 6'4.5", 240, big, smart, tough, and he's like, I'm out. I can't do it any longer. Andrew Luck couldn't handle it. That's why I question Zach Wilson. And apparently the Jets today are falling apart physically. They've had a terrible day at practice with the Packers. So the big story yesterday, it was pretty interesting. I got to be honest. Draymond Green has a really good podcast, and he interviewed Kevin Durant. It was fascinating. And I've said this before. It creates content. I'm not going to criticize people for content. You give me good content, I'm a fan. But it does strike to something that everybody was really hot on the Brooklyn Nets last year. And I was like, hold on. Whoa. You know how, like, when they have these franchises in Hollywood, there's an arc to it. Like Batman, the super teams, right? We compare them to, like, movie trilogies, like they're franchises, like Batman or Superman. They start with comic books, so we get emotionally invested in the comic book. And then they make a movie out of it. You're like, whoo. And then they start selling merchandise. They make a franchise out of it. So there's an arc to it. You know, that's really what Kobe and Shaq were. Pippen and Jordan were. Isaiah Lambeer were. Like, they were young together, lost close together, won close, and then became like a dynasty. There's an arc to it. And so in Golden State, Draymond, Steph, and Clay, they were like a comic book, a movie. Oh, it's a franchise. Like, there's always been that arc to it. Now, increasingly, we feel like the NBA is kind of a throw it together. The Milwaukee Bucks just did that. Young together, lost together, win a title together, and I think they have a chance to win 2 or 3 titles here in the next 5 years. The Warriors did it the historic way. Drafted together, grow together, lose together, suddenly good together. Oh, damn, they're great together. The Nets are the opposite, and that's why I've always had questions. The Nets are like if you threw Matrix, Lord of the Rings, Transformers, you just threw them all together, already stars, and said, make it work. Well, they've had no struggle together. So when you throw KD and Harden, and by the way, KD's had multiple divorces. Kyrie's had multiple divorces. I'm talking about basketball divorces. James Harden couldn't get along with CP3. Westbrook, Dwight Howard. It's like throwing 3 different movie trilogies together and go, all right. These guys played 8 games together last year. It's just not the way the league historically works. There is an arc to it. There's a formula to it, just like movie franchises. You're a comic book, so people are totally in to the character. Then they make a movie. They start selling a lot of merchandise. You know, Burger King, I get my little Superman, and then I go over there and I get and then they make a franchise out of it. And then maybe off that, you create another franchise. But you don't just throw Superman and Batman. Now, increasingly, you are seeing people throw stuff together. But I've always been reluctant on the Brooklyn thing. And as I watched the KD interview with Draymond yesterday, that was always my question on KD. Man, you just be very careful on this stuff. It is hard to get great players together, and it all works. Because Kyrie emotionally, not quite sure where he is day to day. Harden, he struggled with some star teammates. KD, he's had some stuff that doesn't work. Didn't kind of work in Golden State. Didn't really work in OKC. So I guess that's my point being, I've always been a doubter on the Nets thing. It just doesn't feel right. And all these guys, by the way, I'd say KD